Hey everyone, Jaynix 20. It's been a while, and I woke up like 2 hours ago. I got home from work at like 2 a.m. last night. I got I'm a mess. I'm in the middle of playing right now. I'm just like, I gotta go to work today at 4. It's 9 o'clock. I think I said at 9:30. I'm playing this right now on the TV. I'm looking right at it. I have my incredible controller right here. And all that is to say, I just decided that it's time I did this. Because I promised that I would do it forever ago, and I just haven't because of things. It doesn't matter though. So when I was at work yesterday, because I fold a lot of shirts. That's what I do most of the time. And I was just thinking of what I would say for this video, because I was like, how do I summarize everything that I ever wanted to do with my Xenoblade Chronicles X stories that I'm never going to do because I've abandoned it? And I decided that the easiest thing was to just go by everything one by one before delving into what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, that means this is really spur of the moment. I didn't actually go into any of my stories to look into specific names for certain characters, but it's okay. We'll get through this. So this video might be long. I hope it isn't, but in case it is, a fair warning. And of course, this is such a niche video. Like, only 2 people are gonna find use out of this video. But like I said before, I want to tell you everything that I wanted to do. For anyone who's reading the stories, what it is I wanted to happen with the rest of the Kruse and Jaynix universe of fanfics, I guess. So I guess we're gonna start. There's a mouse. And I have my Archive of Our Own page, because I just want to say Archive of Our Own series feature is like it's just so great. I love it. So you can see it right here. There it is, the good old plot summary of the universe as a whole. I'm also really hungry, so yeah, here we go. So the first stories aren't really that big a deal. Do I Know Me and Consequences are exactly what they're supposed to be. With Do I Know Me being the one about Kruse believing that he's a ganglion spy, and that one simply exists because I thought that I was a ganglion spy when I was playing the game. Cats. Which I think I covered before, but I might as well do it now since I'm going to be saying everything here and never talk about this again. I read a spoiler. I don't remember if it was on the Xenoblade Chronicles X GameFAQs thread, or it was somewhere. But the spoiler was basically talking about how, oh, your cross is like the reincarnation of this, not the reincarnation, the clone of this other really important character. I think they're supposed to be the clone of the original hero. And I'm like, well, thanks for spoiling Xenoblade X for me, asshole. But then I played through Xenoblade X and that never happened. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I really did legitimately believe that your player character was the mole at one point. But then it turned out to be Lao and led into like the worst plot point of the game with a story already full of terrible plot points. But sorry, I'll try to keep a lid on that. But yeah, that's all that the story was. Everything about that story stays the same. Nothing changes. I mean, if I was to rewrite it, maybe, but nah. Okay, Consequences, that was just my Lao hate story. It was basically how I would have wanted that chapter to go versus how I know that it absolutely could not go, but how I wanted to see it. So it basically ended with either Lao getting basically disowned and jailed forever, or him getting killed by a combination of either Elma or Jaynix. And obviously the Elma and Jaynix ones are non-canon, just something I wanted to write because it was an idea I had in my head. I hate Lao. But the first one with Kruse stating what he thinks of Lao. And also Kruse siding with Elma. Not just because obviously he has feelings for her, but because I, as a player, firmly believe Elma was in the right in that chapter. And that the fact that your avatar character will stand next to Lynn no matter what is frankly unacceptable, in my opinion. I definitely think, I really think it should have been a choice. Either way, it would have ended the same way. Either Lao's like, oh my gosh, you two are standing up as Elma for me? That's crazy. Here. Or wow, Lynn standing up against both of them for me. Wow, here, it would have nothing would have had to change, and it wouldn't have made that chapter. It was already a terrible chapter, but they made it even worse by not having a choice there. That's all I'll say on that. So those stories stay the same. Nothing important there. So the next one that we move on to is Jaynix, which is the story about when Jaynix was actually first found. Why does this come after? Oh, right, because the other one's non-canon. Okay. I was about to say, like... Oh, wait, no, I skipped. Oops. Okay, now I see. Alright, stay sharp. Well, Jaynix isn't even in this one, but it comes after because the only canon part about this one is the one that takes place during the game, without Jaynix. So here we go. Stay sharp, from what I recall, stays the same as well. So whatever you read there, there's really nothing... Like, I do believe there was someone, I want to say it was Cormac Ravenstaff, who commented that Stay Sharp was pretty, what was the word? He used the word. I'm going to use a word. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I'm going to use a word to say that the story dialogue was wooden, I want to say. Like, it wasn't crazy. It's because Stay Sharp was my comeback to writing. It was like the first big thing that I decided to give an attempt to write. And, so it's not the best, in my opinion, but it got the job done. Once again, in another world, I would have rewritten the whole thing, but we're not doing that. But yeah, it stays the same. It's the same thing. Kruse trying to build up confidence to admit how he feels about Elma, him training with Elma, Gabweed, and Gajard, and getting better with his Photon Saber. All that is good. It's all good. Now we move on to Jaynix, all right, which was, of course, the mission of Irina, Kruse, and Elma going out to find Jaynix, or to find something in Noctilum that turns out to be a life pod that they missed somehow. Well, I wouldn't say somehow. I'd say perfectly sensible given the events of the story. People are kind of busy saving the world, or saving the rest of humanity, to worry about random reports of Lifehold wreckage. Even though it might have been the Lifehold, but at that point they'd already found the Lifehold, so it's like, okay, hey, all those other missions we put on back order, let's do them now, since we can and we have the time to do it. So I think my favorite part about the story is the fact that only Irina, Elma, and Kruse go out to get Jaynix, and that's simply because in the game you're only allowed a party of 4. And so because they're recruiting Jaynix, only 3 of them could go. So I don't know. It's a little comedic game humor thing that just came to mind when I was writing it. And obviously it's not something I think anyone would pay attention to, but I just thought it was funny. But this story also stays exactly the same. So we're all good. I think now we start with the changes. No. So next after Jaynix is Hello Xenos, which I really did like writing that one. That was a really fun one to write, about introducing Jaynix to the world of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and having her meet all the Xenoforms, including a chapter where she meets Elma again. So like, I like that. I just liked writing it. It was a lot of fun. Of course, it was also really sad because you see, because at the time this story was written after Skells Love and after some other ones that I went back in time, and like it's like it's like Kingdom Hearts. I go all over the place. So for Hello Xenos, she meets a lot of friends, but as you know, in Skells Love, she kind of keeps to herself, and then it's just like, well, what happened to all these friends she made? And you find out by the end that she can't be around them because of obviously her tormented past, which is a recurring theme that's the main focus of Skells Love, diving into all that. So that story stays the same. Okay, now we get to changes. Skells Love has a few changes of note that I wanted to rewrite, and I just never did. 2 changes. Also, Skells Love, oh shit, this is going to take a while to cover because it gives way to a lot since I actually have to finish the story. So I'm not writing the ending. I'm done with the story. I'm just saying that I have to finish this and tell you how it ends. And I don't know how it ends. Not true. Okay, so the first thing that changes in Skells Love is in one of the earliest chapters when Alexa and Jaynix first meet, and they go out to eat. They go out to eat at the curry place from the game. It's where you teach that Rothian how to make curry, and then he becomes a really great curry chef. Sorry. He's the Rothian that Jaynix meets in Hello Xenos, along with, I think there's another one that she meets at the same time. I could be wrong, but basically, they become friends because Jaynix likes cooking, and so she wants to learn his lessons. But then because of what happened, she never goes back for those lessons. And so the idea that she just randomly decides, like, because there's a time gap between Hello Xenos and Skells Love, obviously, and in that time gap, she never went back to that curry place. She never took on those lessons, and so to have her go back with Alexa, because once again they were written in reverse. So writing Skells Love first, totally fine. With the context of Hello Xenos, it doesn't make any sense that that's where they go. So that would change. So how I would change it, I don't remember this was suggested by someone, but it was basically have Alexa suggest, like, maybe have Jaynix be like, let's go out to eat somewhere, because she's getting her flirt on. And then have Alexa suggest they go to the curry place because it's really good. And then have Jaynix backpedal, like, let's try something different. Like, or maybe make an excuse that she doesn't like her even though she does. Or just something to go somewhere else and to kind of, like, direct it elsewhere. And that's one change. Very, very small change. Another slightly bigger change. I'm trying to run through the story in my head. I think everything about the story is good up until mission. So there were a few things I did in mission that like, because mission is gigantic. Mission is like that. I think that was like the 20,000 word chapter, but it was the one that the whole story had been building up to at that point. It was like the climax of the story, and then everything else after is the fallout. So mission, the whole point of mission was to have that gigantic final battle between Blade and what's left of the Ganglion, which they were being led by the dude who actually appeared in the main game, but you never encountered because, once again, there's so many loose plot threads that the game didn't even care to fill in, and it just decided, hey, let's leave this hanging because fuck, we'll get a sequel in 3 years and then we'll explain everything. But there are a few cutscenes in the game where you're on the warship, and which, by the way, that's another thing, the warship just vanishes from the story, never comes up. It's not even a super boss after you beat the game. Whatever. It's Luxor. Luxor is a warship. And there's some scenes where he's on it. Obviously, he's talking to people. Like, I think there's one scene where Goetia comes in. There's another scene where Gajar and Garbuit are there. And I don't know if there's ever a scene with I don't know. I don't even know their names because they're so forgettable. The big dude and the creepy lady. I don't think there's ever a scene with them talking to Luxor, except when they're stealing the big weapon from the weapons hangar in Cauldros. But there's a few moments where there's another dude there talking to him, and that's the guy that I made the leader of the Ganglion now that Luxor's gone. Granted, I did find out that he's actually one of I didn't find this out like just now. This is way back. He's also a member of a different alien race, and there are actually a few of him. So there is him who's in a few scenes. I want to say at least 2 scenes talking to Luxor, and then there's more of his kind who are on the radio talking to Luxor during the final battle when they're talking about the humans coming in and breaching their defenses to get to the Lifehold. Also that. I made him the leader, and I decided to take a bunch of unique monsters from the game and make them important, like Badul the One-Eyed, Chantal the Insect Maiden, and a bunch of others. The Definian Urdu, I believe, I also used her. And I also made up some of my own. I originally made up some of my own to have them be the main ones, but I was like, I'll just use the ones from the game. But then I brought in the ones that I made up anyway. So that chapter, the changes I would do, because I mean, I thought the chapter was fantastic because it's so long and it's so much fighting and there's so much setting. And then I want to say it's Cormac Ravenstaff's review came in and he was like a little, I don't want to say disappointed, maybe he was, but there were some aspects about his review that kind of got me going, huh? Because it's like you type tens of thousands of words for a chapter and you figure, I got everything, I did everything. But then he's like, oh, he didn't say that, but it's like Slavity only killed one person, and my thought process to that was like, she's not important. The focus is on Blade and their allies, sure, but eventually originally the chapter starts going through everyone's perspectives, and then it just zeroes in on Jaynix's team, and occasionally switches over to what Kruse is doing, right, and I think also Alexa up in the sky. And so Slavity's one kill that she had was because that's all I really needed her for, to show that she's there. And for the rest of the battle, you can assume that she's helping. It's the same with Gajard. Another thing he brought up was that Gajard makes his presence known. He does an amazing roar, but then there's never any cut to what his team is doing. Once again, I just left it up to your imagination that his team has arrived and they are just wrecking shit. So with Slavity, I think it's fine. With Gajard, maybe it would have been better if I added a scene there. I don't know. Like, I gotta remember, I don't remember what the context was of that chapter. Like, when Gajard came in and what was going on with Jaynix currently. That might have made it awkward to cut to Gajard and show this awesome Rothian scene and then cut back to Jaynix and continue with her thing. I don't know. But maybe I would add a scene with the Rothians at that point. Who knows? Their Skells are really cool, so maybe I could make some use of that, because we never broke their Skells. I'm pretty sure they repaired them. The Deva Kaladar and the whatever Gajard's is called, because it's really cool. Best boss fight in the game. After that, there is everything else is fixed. I would kind of add some additional little context clues to because there was one part of the review that I acknowledge I probably should clear up, and that was, how did Gabweet immediately know that Jaynix and Skells don't mix? So I would add more there to make it clear as to how she knows that. We'll just, or maybe not even, maybe just not even imply that, because the whole point was that, well, I guess Elma freaks out Jaynix not because of her Skell, but because at that point Jaynix is kind of like frazzled and all that stuff. She's been on for weeks, so yeah, but still, I definitely would have altered that dialogue. Also, my original idea for having, because I realized later that it was kind of ridiculous to just have I think it was Vandam, I don't know who it was, be like, all right, Kruse, I'm gonna look away now, beat this guy to death. I thought, like, it only occurred to me how ridiculous that was after the review I got about it for the next chapter, when it was revealed that the dude was actually dead. In my head, it made perfect sense, because he was already dying. He was like impaled on stuff, and he was gonna go, and he had the audacity to insult Elma in front of Kruse, and so Kruse just beat him to death. Makes sense. That was actually gonna get changed, though. I was gonna do a whole big rewrite of that scene where the dude, it did look like he was in really bad shape, and maybe Kruse punches him once to knock him out, and then that's it. So moving forward, in the next chapter, it was gonna stay the same though. Chuson was gonna make the announcement that the dude died, but, and this is a big but, Chuson is doing another one of those things that Chuson does where everybody in the game hates him, but then he reveals why he's doing it. It's like, actually, that makes sense. And then everyone in the game doesn't hate him anymore. And that was that he lies to everybody, to literally everyone, that the dude is dead, because he wants to keep him not safe, but like secure, so that no one except Chuson and maybe two other people, who knows, know that the Archbishop is still alive, and he's in a secret cell in the Blade Tower, and basically they're trying to interrogate him and get information. So eventually, the reason I want to do that is because I don't want chapters and chapters and stories of the good guys not knowing who they're up against. So maybe, so the Archbishop doesn't like give everything away, but he at least tells them who the remnants are. Badul's remnants, the ones who escaped the mission in that digging thing, and then screw off and vanish, and who are going to be the main villains of the next, like, 10 fan fictions. Those guys? Yeah, them. I want the good guys to know who they are. So by doing that, having the Archbishop survive and having him get interrogated in secret, that's what I wanted to implement in the change. Moving forward, so I'm actually going to open the story now so that I can know exactly where it is I left off. I have a part of chapter, because I think the last chapter I wrote was 14. Let me see. 14. Yeah, Fallout. So I was writing 15, and 15 I had the hardest fucking time writing. And I held off on it simply because I didn't know what to do with it. Which, by the way, looking at the story now, it's just like, wow, I forgot all about this. Okay, the Councilman Erithos is dead. So that part would stay the same. Him making this announcement, even though Ethos is not dead. So I would make it clear at some point. I don't know if it's in this story or in a future story, but basically the way I see it is that Chuson has information about the ganglion remnants. Maybe someone questions like, "How did you know that?" And he's like, "It's classified," kind of thing. And then we would find out later that it's because Ethos is still alive. Whether it's in this story or in another story, I don't know yet, and I'm never gonna know because I'm not gonna do it. But that is a point that I wanted to bring up. So moving forward. I just want to see how it ended. Okay. Yeah, there was this whole point where Jaynix talked about her wife, and then yeah, she never mentioned her before. Not just that. Also, her sister. I'm sorry for spending so much time trying to hate you. Yeah, that was something about Jaynix's character that was really interesting to write, and it was about the fact that she hates Elma because she believes that Elma is the one who gave Kumon, Hideo Kumon, and the people the order to become the martyrs. And then there's this part right here is actually really important, where Elma tells, or where Jaynix asks Elma if she knows who gave the order. Elma does know, and Elma specifically doesn't tell Jaynix. That's important for later. Not in this story, but for later. So, okay. Yeah, so the next chapter I believe was going to be called Recovery, maybe? And it starts... I've started the chapter like 5 times, and I can never figure out which way I liked better. But it starts with everybody in the Mimioso maintenance center. And it's the latest version I can remember in my head was Irina and Jaynix are up and about talking, and they're kind of like laughing about their injuries and making light of what they've been through before Alexa kind of like shuts that down. She's like, it's not something to joke about, and like because obviously Alexa was incredibly stressed out by what happened to Jaynix and everything. So it's like a buzzkill kind of moment, but it also makes sense. They're too light about it, and it's bothering her that they're not that concerned about it, and all that kind of stuff. And that's really all I wrote. I was never able to get out of the MMC because I wrote like 20 versions of that scene, and I didn't like any of them. Like, it made Alexa feel too much of a buzzkill, but also having Jaynix and Irina joke about it also didn't feel right after what we were through. So I kept trying to reword it and refix it. I think in the end that was not a good way to start that chapter, which then led me to the point where I had no idea how to start that chapter. And to this point, I actually don't even know what Alexa knows. Like, I'm serious. Did Jaynix ever tell Alexa that she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder? Did Jaynix ever tell Alexa that Skells are the cause of it, like they're the main trigger? Did she ever tell... I doubt she ever told Alexa about what happened, the martyrs, how everyone died. She definitely didn't tell her about her wife. So that's all stuff that'll have to happen. So here it is. Okay, so the chapter, it says on Archive that this story has 14 out of 18 chapters. How those other 4 chapters would have shaped up, I still have no fucking idea. But I do know that there was one big moment of note. Obviously, there's... Jaynix has to tell Alexa everything. That's either going to be in the semifinal or final chapter. I forget which one. And obviously, they need to get together, which is, once again, in the semifinal chapter or the final one. But one event that I do know that I wanted to happen in some way is that I wanted Jaynix to leave NLA and just kind of go out into Primordia to think about everything that has happened and like where her position lies, because obviously she's still in trouble. I don't know if she was brought in for the meeting yet, but I do know that Chuson and Nagi are eventually going to call Jaynix in to talk about her PTSD and everything, and how it affects her place in the field, and how they can't have her as active as a Blade member as she's been if she has these crippling problems. And it's going to be this whole mission, this whole thing. So it's not like they were going to fire her, but it was going to come awfully close, and Jaynix basically leaves to ponder, like, well, what good is she if she can't fight? If she can't be a soldier, and if she can't help humanity, then what's the whole point? So she's trying to think, in Mission, there was a prone in a Skell that I think she fought, or that was fought during the, and this prone was a new prone. It's one I made up. So it's one of the two. I made a prone and a Milsati. It was one of the two new ones that I made up. And this prone escaped that battle. He comes back during Jaynix's rumination and attacks Jaynix because he wants revenge, obviously. And while she does initially fight him back, he eventually calls his Skell in, and that sets off everything again. And it's almost like one of those situations where it's like, uh-oh. Like, I mean, I've written stories after this, so you know Jaynix is not going to die, but it gets really dire. And that's when Alexa comes in her Skell, to fight this dude off and everything and save Jaynix. And it kind of reminds Jaynix in that moment when Alexa's Skell lands in front of her and starts fighting the prone. It reminds her of her wife doing the same thing back up in space when she was frozen in a place and her wife's Skell came in the way to cover her. And that snaps Jaynix out of her funk enough to like start thinking about what she has to do and how to fight back. And it's not until because Alexa's distracted too, because Jaynix is right there, and it's like, I mean, it doesn't matter in game. Like, if you're in a Skell by yourself and you have Irina, Gwyn, and Elma next to you fighting, it doesn't matter in game. But in real life, if you're in a giant machine fighting a giant machine and someone you care about is like on the floor nearby, you're gonna be very careful because you don't want to step on them. The bad guy don't give a shit though; he'll step on them. So Alexa's kind of fighting with one hand tied behind her back, trying to hold the dude off, but also be careful not to hurt Jaynix with any of the firepower or anything that's going off. And because of that, her Skell gets heavily damaged, and that's finally what gets Jaynix to snap, attack the Skell, destroy it, and kill the prone. And that leads into realizing that for real this time, Jaynix has to tell everything to Alexa. And whether that happens there or whether that happens later, after maybe they regroup and go back to New LA, it doesn't matter. It happens. She finally tells her everything. Obviously, is Alexa cool with it? I don't remember if the whole story was supposed to be like a whole awakening for Alexa. Like, she's like, oh, I like women, or at least I like Jaynix. But she already came to that realization. So when Jaynix finally decides to admit that she has feelings for Alexa, Alexa's able to return them immediately. Because, yeah, obviously, that's what the whole chapter was building up to. That's what the whole story was building up to. And they get together, but Jaynix is still really concerned because of all the problems she has, and she knows that it's something that she's going to have to deal with for a long time, if not the rest of her life. And Alexa makes it known that it doesn't matter to her. Like, that she's going to help as best she can. She knows that even though they're together now, it doesn't get rid of it completely, and it's never going to. But she wants to at least help Jaynix. Just deal with it and live with it. And live, so she's not constantly trying to get herself killed. So yeah, the story ends there with that. And I think I was going to make a teaser at the end, because I think I implied, but I don't know if I did, that Badul was going to go recruit more people. And I don't know if I was going to do it in this story or another one. But I wanted there to be a new, like a moment in the story where we cut to the remnants and we see Badul and his crew, or Badul by himself, approaching Nahum and basically asking her to join them. Which, if you don't know, Nahum is one of the super bosses in the game. She is a Milsati, and when you take her down to certain health, she summons her Skell and hops in, and that's like the real fight. I believe her Skell is actually a version of Goetia Skell from the story. It's called Nardakion the Shadowless. I never beat it, but it exists, and it's actually really cool. And so they're recruiting a super boss to their remnants, in addition to the members that are already there, and also the Zern that they have, which is also a super boss from the game. I don't know if anyone knows about it in Apocalypse 1, but that's the one that it's like off the coast of Kaldros somewhere, I believe. I think that's it. Leviel, the Terminus. There we go. Leviel the Terminus, that's the name of it. So yeah. And then Skells Love ends, and Jaynix and Alexa are together now, and that gives way to the rest of to the rest of the Kruse and Jaynix universe, which will cover everything that happens after Skells Love in my next video, which will be coming up, which should be up right now. I'm gonna put them both up. So I hope I explained enough. And if you want me to clarify something more, or maybe if you want to ask about another element of Skells Love to be explained that I maybe have forgotten, I'll explain it. I'll get into it. But maybe with any luck, I'll hit on something that you're wondering in the next video. But in case I don't, leave me a comment and I will answer it, because I wanna put this all to rest. I wanna let you know everything. You know, I don't want to keep anything else locked up in here. I mean, heck, if it's never gonna happen, but if I ever do want to write it, it's good to watch these videos back myself and see what it is I was thinking. Which that's a terrifying question. I never know what I'm thinking. All right, so that's the first one. We'll be moving on to the second one. So see y'all there. Till next time. Hasta.